suddenly finds new definition. You know, so often in the busy schedules that we represent out there, you know, in the business world, you know, time becomes such a cramped little space wherein you need to try and find enough space to communicate your contribution in society. But then we discover a place of different dimensions. It goes beyond budgets. You know, when Jesus fed the multitudes, he didn't do it in a nervous kind of way. You know, he didn't get guys to line up and say, listen, I'm not sure whether we're going to make this. You know, we've got 5 loaves, 2 fish to start with, but we might run out soon. Then we're going to need another loaf, another fish. His economy just so far surpasses the situation that we often face in the natural. That's why he challenges us to take no thought. You know, the moment you take a thought, with the thought comes its energy. You take that thought. It might present itself in a very attractive fashion. You take the thought, you've got to deal with the energy. Take no thought, what you shall eat, what you shall drink, what you shall put on. These thoughts that occupy the minds of the human race, just take no thought. Because it's provided for us an understanding of who we really are. When we discover, who we access that space that He has redeemed us for. The space of discovering ourselves. Not discovering yet another doctrine, yet another definition, yet another experience, as Andre so beautifully explained this morning, adding into all these wonderful Christian valid experiences, legitimate experiences, but discovering Him in the knowledge that He's always known me. I might have been a surprise to my parents, but He's known me before He fashioned me in my mother's womb. And within that context, God gives context to our lives. That is His Sabbath. God did not enter into the 7th day exhausted. Even God needs a break after a while. You know, it's really cost Him. You know, He's had to display in 6 days the energy of His being made visible in creation. It doesn't grow weary. Doesn't tire. Your crisis cannot exhaust God, says Isaiah chapter 40, to the young men who fall down exhausted because my way seems so disregarded by God. It seems like I've lost my rights before the Father. I feel weary. I feel worn out and exhausted. And I begin to blame it on God. Those young men, kavah, they discover a place. And this is the place that the gospel reveals. The place that God has opened unto us through a new and living way. Understanding that He created us and redeemed us for a space called the Sabbath. A Sabbath knowledge. And knowing that it's complete. It is perfect. If God did not enter into the Sabbath day exhausted, what was God's energy in the Sabbath day? Total satisfaction.
Yes. Amen.
God celebrates His perfection. We sang just now, ascribe greatness to our God. How can we, humans, ascribe, define God's greatness? By knowing that He's the rock. His work is perfect. His work is perfect. And so He's come to introduce us to ourselves again. Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah. Let me introduce you to the rock. The rock that you've forgotten, that gave birth to you. And upon this rock, upon this revelation of who you really are, I will build my ecclesia. And then He says, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against this ecclesia. Now immediately a picture comes to mind. If something is gated, if something is locked, secure, but that something does not belong to the guy who occupies that space. It belongs to the ecclesia that is about to break through that gate, to repossess. You see, for so long we've looked at Matthew 16 and says, yeah, God's going to build his church and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. Why? Because the mission of the ecclesia is to possess the nations. Yes. And the word Hades is an interesting word in the Greek. It's the word ha-ides, not to see. So man's ignorance trapped him in the knowledge of himself according to the flesh. So I knew myself as a Jew or a Greek or a Gentile or a Pharisee or a scholar or a student or a fisherman, or my job description identified me, or my salary or my career choice, and I was known by that after the flesh. And we've labeled ourselves and allowed the world and the society to fashion their opinion upon us. And yet Jesus comes and he says, I'm going to reveal, unveil, as in a mirror, your blueprint design, your original you, the way God knew you before he fashioned you in your mother's womb, so that you may know as you have always been known. And it's only in that reference that we can discover ourselves and say with Paul, but from now on I no longer know any man from a human point of view. Now that I've discovered that God separated me from my mother's womb, when he revealed his son in me, says Galatians chapter 1, not to me as some translations would have it. He revealed his son in me, because if Jesus was just a revelation to me, he would be